Hello, hello, hello. It's that time again, time for another This Week in Geek show. This week on the show, we have some more, of course, weird, wacky news, regular media news, geek news. Birdman returns for his first review in quite some time. He also sent over a little message to sort of give an update on how he's doing. And I'll play that at the end of this intro before we go into our first review. And I think it's going to be sort of off and on with him, at least as far as content goes, until he's feeling 100% better. But in the meantime, he wanted to give an update. So what's sort of been going on this week on the show? Lots more stuff to talk about review-wise. A lot of VR stuff came in that we've been, again, working through. Some RPGs that are going to take some time, so sort of expect some content to be delineated over the next week or so. Stuff that came in right after they already came out physically and released to retail. So, you know, instead of our normal having the review out just before or maybe a day or so after the game comes out, some of these titles you might have to wait a week to hear from us because, you know, when you're sent an RPG or a series of RPGs that are like 80 hours a piece and they get you the review code for the 3 games like a few days before release, kind of difficult to get it out, seeing as there's not literally enough time in the day or week to do it. So, this week on the show, what we have is a review of Synth Riders, which is an Oculus Quest VR title rhythm game. Then we're going to have a review from Birdman for Wonder Woman 1984. And then we're going to have my review of MLB The Show 21, which is for the PlayStation 5. And I know it's for multi-console right now. I'll briefly touch upon my experience with the Xbox, but the review was sent to us from Sony to check it out on the Sony platform. So that's mainly what we'll be reviewing it on for this at the end. And then, of course, we'll come back at the end with just a brief update what's coming up with this week on the programming and what to expect. So may as well, throw it over to Birdman since you haven't heard him for a while. So here's Birdman, then we'll be back with our first review.
Hey guys, what's going on? It is I, Mike the Birdman, and, well, I'm not back here on ThisWeekInGeek.net, at least not for a little while. I know Alex has been taking the show for the last little bit, and I wanted to provide you with a more personalized health update and kind of a personal update as to what's going on with me, as I am still active on Twitter and Facebook, but I haven't done a lot in terms of personalized updates for you guys here on the podcast. This was suggested by Alex and my wife to kind of give you guys something a little bit more, here I am. Okay, so as you guys know, I had problems with my gallbladder, and that expanded to my liver. The good news is that I'm mostly out of the woods. My gallbladder is still very angry, and it's gonna be removed sometime in the next month or so. Now, I spoke to my surgeon a couple of days ago, and it's an emergent surgery. It's not life-threatening, but it is an emergency, which means the first chance they get a chance to slot me in, they're going to take me into a day surgery. Hopefully, I might be admitted overnight. We don't know yet. And they're going to take it out, which will help me heal because that is complicating other matters within me right now. Now, for those of you who are listening around the world, Canada, and more specifically Ontario, is in the middle of the third wave of COVID, which is complicating our healthcare system in a very particular way into our ICUs, which is the intensive care units of many hospitals, are frankly overwhelmed with COVID patients and anything else. And there's the triage protocol, which determines who gets what bed when. And it's reaching a critical point right now. So if something bad happens to me, that's very bad for me. So the doctors are kind of taking their time. They're waiting to see what's going to happen. They're like, Mike, hopefully nothing happens to you, but we're going to get you in as soon as we can because this does need to get dealt with now. Now, what has also kind of gone on with that is that's damaged my liver. in some fairly significant ways. My liver levels are all out of whack right now, which has led to some complications with some bacteria in there as well. So I'm not in great shape in that regard, but I'm not dying, at least not immediately. Hopefully they're going to get that dealt with sooner as opposed to later. I do have a procedure scheduled for July to put in another stent, which is what they did the first time round with a procedure called an ERCP, where they went into my common bile duct, put in this little piece of plastic, and they passed a bunch of gallstones. And so far, that's been fairly successful. I have had a few gall attacks, but nothing significant as enough to hospitalize me. So, so far, so good. So Alex has said to you guys, it's going to be a little while till I come back because my energy levels are all over the place. And frankly, that's true. I'm sleeping up to 20 hours a day. And it's really kind of taking a toll on my mental health in that regards. The fact that I can't do what I want when I want. And it's kind of affecting me in the fact that I don't get a chance to do as much work here on the show as I'd like to. But I am going to be doing some reviews here and there as I get a chance to. You're going to hear a review in this show, actually, that I'm doing. So I've got some wonderful support from some of the people that we've worked with over the years here on the show. So big thanks to Alex for doing this for me. I literally could not do this without him. Big thanks to Aaron and Steve and JT and Blanchard and anybody else who decides to help out with This Week in Geek over the next little while as I recover. Hopefully things will get better, because as they take up my gallbladder, that means I'm that much closer to weight loss surgery. And that's going to be another significant barrier for me to cross. But the good news is my surgeon seems to think, well, you've survived everything we've thrown at you so far, so maybe you don't need to do this test we wanted you to do. So we'll see what happens. So anyway, guys, I guess I'm going to throw it back to Alex, and, I'll talk to you guys soon. If you want to reach out to me, I'm at Birdman on Twitter or Mike at ThisWeekInGeek.net. I have gotten a few messages from people on Twitter and Facebook, and I thank each and every one of you who has reached out. It is appreciated, and thank you very much. So until next time, guys, and I do mean this from the bottom of my heart, because it's going to be yet another wild year. So be excellent to each other, and I'll talk to you guys again real soon, right here on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
Basically, using geeks.
Leave me alone, geek boy.
Holy shit, you geeks are badass.
The team that put together the VR game Synth Riders sent a copy over for us to check out now that we have entered the VR space with the Oculus Quest 2. But not only sending over the initial game, they sent over pretty much every expansion pack song-wise that they have. And it was a bit of a doozy to redeem. I'll give you a bit of a tip here first. I found out that if you redeem too many codes at once, they'll put you in a Oculus holding cell for a little bit for 24 hours. If you try to redeem too many, I guess it triggered some sort of security measure, thinking like, hey, what's this person doing redeeming so many codes? But because instead of it being like one code to unlock each expansion pack, it was individual songs from each expansion pack. So after, taking 2 to 3 days or so to redeem each song and then slowly going in and playing each one, I wanted to make sure that I had a chance to play each song a few times to just sort of get a feel for it and make sure that I could properly, articulate my thoughts on the whole process. The game Synth Riders is similar to other rhythm VR games in that you're moving your hands around. But instead of like Beat Saber, which is what everybody probably knows, where you're slashing things, this is you are using your hands sort of like fist bumping, and as if almost like you're gliding through the air, like you're holding onto rails, sort of, as it goes through the songs. So making sure that you hit each ball as it comes up, or each rail stream of the beat is the name of the game here. So you are moving around. It's probably best played from a standing position if you can do that. If you're somebody who is disabled or in a wheelchair, you can make adjustments. If you can't stand for extended periods of time, to change the height of your character, the ground level. There's a bunch of comfort adjustments you can do, which is good. It's not as customizable as I was hoping. Like you will have a harder time if you're just sitting down playing it, or if that's your only ability to do so. But that being said, there's enough tweaks in here to make it so that you can play it pretty much almost the same as when you're standing. Now, interestingly enough, there's a lot of different customization settings you can set for reducing difficulty. You can even go in, like if there's a very difficult song. One thing I liked is you can turn off the ability to fail, so that you can practice with it. But instead of other games where they do practice modes where no score is tallied, or it doesn't even show you. Some games they'll have it where it doesn't even like give you a challenge. It reduces it so much. You can play the game at whatever difficulty you want and just turn off the ability to lose, and you just obviously won't get the same kind of score or whatever. But it will let you learn that way, so you'll learn the path, the track, and move on from there. So some of the more difficult levels, if your cardio isn't up to it, you're able to go and just play and just listen to the music as you go, because part of the fun of this is hearing the music go as you hit the sound effects from hitting your beats by tracking along. And if you don't have the ability to move around as fast as that, you might not get too far into a level. So it is nice to see that. And then there's other customization tools you can do for how wide of an area you can be in, and so on and so forth. It's a very colorful, very well designed game as far as visual aesthetic. As far as the individual tracks go, some are going to be hit or miss. Some attune themselves better to rhythm games than others, and music games than others. I did like some of the Offspring. There's a package called Adrenaline that has an Offspring songs in there. I wasn't sure that was going to fit well, being that it's like rock trying to be converted with mixes for like a techno mixes. It works pretty well. It was an interesting play. There's also the Synthwave 2 pack, which has songs by The Muse, Electro Swing, Cyberpunk Essentials, and there was was it Gunship, I think, and a few other bands that I've heard of that are like the synthwave bands that were really fun to play, that I've listened to in different Spotify playlists before. So if you're looking for something that has a pretty wide variety of songs you can purchase for it, as well as ones that were built in, like there's a lot more here than I was expecting. A lot of rhythm games will have like a few splattering songs here and there, and you got to buy tons of stuff, or you don't get a lot for your money. You don't really get the value out of it. You get a fair bit here with each package, and it's different than a lot of the ones where you're slashing things, or for people that back in the day that remember the Guitar Hero type stuff. This is one where you're moving your arms left, right, up, down. You don't have to really swing hard or anything, so you can sort of place your hands in the right spot as you go. But as you get into it, you can bop around and pretend that you're boxing with it, and you can sort of play and dance however you want, because it's mostly just an arm related gameplay style. And it was very fun. I could see myself picking this up and playing. Give yourself like 10 minutes a day or 15 minutes a day to get a little cardio in and get a little stretching and exercise in. And it's not going to be something that I see myself getting bored with anytime soon. So, if you do have an Oculus headset and you want to check out Synth Riders, you're going to be getting a great value for your money on this.
The Prime Minister of Sweden visited Washington today, and my tiny little nipples went to France.
Gossip, rumors, panic in the streets. We're lucky.
This Week in Geek News.
Alrighty, it's news time, and the three stories we've got here for you, curated by Birdman himself. Start with one from Kotaku. It says here, Sony reverses course on PS3 and Vita store closure. Today, Sony announced it. This was as of a few days ago, actually, obviously. Sony announced it will no longer shut down the PlayStation Store for PS3 and PS Vita users. Recently, we notified players that the PlayStation Store for PS3 and PS Vita devices was planned to end this summer, wrote Sony Interactive President and CEO Jim Ryan. Upon further inflection, however, it's clear that we made the wrong decision here. So today, I'm happy to say that we will be keeping up with the PlayStation Store operations for PS3 and Vita devices. PSP commerce functionality will retire July 2nd as planned. That makes sense. Seeing as you can get PSP titles on the Vita, anybody that wants to cry it and get mad, I'm sorry, you're using a piece of hardware that almost nobody has anymore, nobody cares about. The Vita, though, had games coming out still for it. So I can see why they want to give it. They're probably going to give it another year. My guess is 1 to 2 years. They will wait till they have something better in place where you can use those games on something else, but who knows? It says here, the sudden reversal comes only weeks after Sony confirmed the rumors that it planned on shuttering its digital storefront on other consoles. The move was largely criticized, with people noting that shutting down the store on older consoles would make it even harder to play certain digital-only games. The Gamer recently published interviews with several indie developers who would have lost their work and revenue if Sony continued with its plans. Because there are people that they issued a developer's license for, like, 6 months ago, and their games hadn't come out yet, and they're like, well, wait, so we paid all this money to be part of your developers program, and then you told us, you don't even tell us, you tell the public before you tell us that, hey, if our game isn't out, or even if it does come out, nobody will be able to buy it. It seems the change of heart was in part motivated by the idea of digital conservation. In the blog, Ryan mentions being happy with Sony figured out how to keep this piece of our history alive for gamers to enjoy, i.e., basically, they realized they were going to lose a lot of money. So that's why they wanted to keep it going. So I guess that makes sense. I know the story was talked about previously. Birdman really wanted us to talk about it, though. So there it is. My predictions are by 2023, it's gone. They're going to find a way, I think, to make those games, or most of them, or all of them, all part of PlayStation Now, and some of them will be downloadable to the system. They're going to put them in the streaming realm, is how it's going to be. Our next story here is brought to us by IGN. It says Spider-Man will finally come to Disney Plus with new deal, but after Netflix. It says here, though Disney Plus has been the streaming home for the Marvel Cinematic Universe and entries from other Marvel series like X-Men, Fantastic Four, Sony Spider-Man movies have been a conspicuous absence from the platform's library until now. Future Spider-Man titles, along with other Sony films, will join Disney's library in the future as Disney and Sony have reached a new licensing agreement. The deal comes almost 2 weeks after Sony Pictures and Netflix have signed a multi-year contract to give Netflix first-run rights to Sony films after they play in theaters. The new Disney deal covers the period after that, meaning theatrical releases from 2022 to 2026 will head to Disney streaming platforms, services, and other television networks after they leave Netflix. This package only covers U.S. markets. Library rights holders to other Sony franchises like Jumanji, Hotel Transylvania are covered by the agreement, as well as numerous other titles. One key point to note, Hulu will gain access to titles from Sony's library beginning as early as this June. It says here, we are thrilled to team up with Disney on delivering our titles to their viewers and subscribers, said Keith Lagoy, president of worldwide distribution and networks for Sony Pictures Entertainment. This agreement cements a key piece of our film distribution strategy, which is to maximize the value of each of our films by making them available to consumers across all windows with a wide range of key partners. Interesting that Disney is looking to get Sony stuff that isn't even related to properties they own. So they're doing the Netflix / Amazon thing where they're trying to secure rights for anything, not just, people thought it was only going to be things that they owned, but they don't. This is a case of obviously things that they have part ownership on, but also things they have no ownership of. That's going to be very interesting in the future and something to keep an eye out for. Netflix might be a little worried on that. And our final story here is from The Hollywood Reporter. It says here, Apple Music must face lawsuit for telling consumers they can buy movies and TV shows. If possession is 9/10 of the law, then what happens when possession gets slippery? That's a question for a federal courtroom in Sacramento, California, where Apple is facing a putative class action lawsuit over the way consumers can buy or rent movies, TV shows, and other content in the iTunes Store. David Andino, the lead plaintiff in the case, argues the distinction is deceptive. He alleges Apple reserves the rights to terminate access to what consumers have purchased, in quotes, and in fact has done so on numerous occasions. This week, U.S. District Judge John Mendez made clear he isn't ready to buy into Apple's view of consumer expectations in the digital market space. Apple contends that no reasonable consumer would believe that purchased content would remain on the iTunes platform indefinitely, writes Mendez. But in common usage, the term buy means to acquire possession over something. It seems plausible, at least at the motion to dismiss stage, that reasonable consumers would expect that their access couldn't be revoked. Which is, I fully believe it. If you rent something or lease something, so your options here are, they might have to change it. When you rent a movie, you're renting it for a certain set time period that you know exists. They could set it so that it's no longer buy, it's lease. You have the right to view it while you're leasing it for this license term. They might have to change that so that you don't technically buy anything. Apple tried other ways to slip away from the claims of false advertising and unfair competition. For example, it tried the time-tested approach of challenging Andino's injury to knock his potential standing as a plaintiff. Apple argues that the plaintiff's alleged injury, which describes as the possibility that the purchased content may at one time disappear, is not concrete but rather speculative. The injury the plaintiff alleges is not, as Apple contends, that he may someday lose access to purchased content, but rather the injury is that at the time of purchase he paid either too much for the product or spent money he would not have for the misrepresentation. The economic injury is concrete and actual, not speculative, as Apple contends. Satisfying the injury is in fact, requirement of Article 3. Yada, 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 lawyer speak. The lawsuit does lose its unjust enrichment claim, but Mendez does leave open the possibility of injunctive relief that could force Apple to change the way it sells content, at least the wording of it, I would think. We'll see if the suit really gets there or is settled. Meanwhile, Amazon is facing similar lawsuits over Prime Video purchases. And I do get that. If you purchase something, you own something, they can't tell you what you can and can't do with it or remove it from you. If I go and I purchase an apple, and I go to eat the apple, and somebody at the store sees that they didn't like what I said about them, they can't take the apple away from me. Right? So, yeah, that's it. Quick, easy. This is our shorter news segment. We're going to probably have shorter ones over the next few weeks until we can get back to having conversations back and forth with people. So I wanted to make sure it was quick and concise, and that's going to do it. And now we're going to move into our next review, which is actually from Birdman himself, so it'll be nice to hear his voice again.
This is a fair request, and I promise I will not judge any person only as a teenager, and that this is no more right than saying all teenagers are drunken dope addicts or glue sniffers.
Hey guys, we are looking at Wonder Woman 1984 on 4K Ultra HD, coming to us from Warner Brothers Home Entertainment. This title was provided to us for review. So this is one of the movies I had a chance to watch during my review period. And I've actually seen this movie a couple of times now. I saw it when it came out on VOD a while back, and then I got sent the 4K copy a couple of weeks ago. So big thanks to Warner Brothers for sending this over during my recovery time. So Wonder Woman 1984, it's one of these movies, I don't know whether I love it or don't love it as much as I should. And that's kind of a weird thing, because I really liked the first Wonder Woman done by Patty Jenkins, who returns to direct this sequel, which takes place in obviously 1984, kind of moving the Wonder Woman storyline forward a couple of decades, introducing some of her more iconic bad guys, such as Cheetah, played by Ghostbusters, Answer the Call's Kristen Wiig, also starred in Bridesmaids, and the Mandalorian himself as Maxwell Lord. And I don't know, the movie's storyline itself, the mall sequence is awesome. That's like probably one of my favorite parts of the movie. I really like Maxwell Lord as a bad guy. I've always enjoyed Pedro Pascal, especially him as Mando. But here he's this weird over-the-top villain. And I kind of like him because he's not truly a bad guy per se. I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain. Kristen Wiig feels weird as Cheetah. I don't know how I feel about it. And I will say this straight out of the gate. I hate the final fight sequence in this between her and Cheetah. The CG looks bad. There is no way. I think it looks a little bit worse in 4K. I just don't like it. I like the God armor that Wonder Woman gets, which is kind of neat. They even work in the invisible jet in this movie, which is kind of weird. Storyline wise, the movie's okay. It's got some weird pacing issues. But that being said, if you're a Wonder Woman fan, it's cool to see more Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. I remember being skeptical about her for years. And then we got Wonder Woman when that came out a couple years ago, and we all really enjoyed that. So I'm thankful that she's still playing this character. I hope we get another movie of hers at some point soon, because the character's rather cool. So to talk about the actual discs itself, you get the movie on 4K, and you get a Blu-ray which has the all the special features. One of the coolest special features I want to mention is there is this Wonder Woman 1984 kind of retro rewind feature where it takes Wonder Woman 1984, puts over the original Wonder Woman theme song, and does this weird animation with it. And it's really, really well done. I was actually quite impressed with it because I haven't heard the Wonder Woman theme song in like decades. I remember I used to watch the show on FX back when that was a thing. So yeah, that was kind of a neat special feature. I would imagine whoever was producing the disc for this actually had quite a bit of fun with that. There's an almost 40-minute behind the scenes where they talk about the making of the movie. There was about 10 special features, give or take. One of the ones I really liked is where they talk about doing the mall sequence, which, again, is one of the big highlights of this movie. There's one where they talk about Kristen and Gal being friends, whatever. There's, like, a gag reel, which, you know, is usually good for a laugh. Stuff like that. I mean, overall, I think this is a pretty good package for the Wonder Woman fan. Definitely not the strongest of the DC movies to come out, but if you're a completionist, then this is probably something you're going to want to add to your collection. The movie does look really good in 4K Ultra HD. I was watching this on an Xbox Series X, and it looks really good. Yeah, I mean, if you liked Wonder Woman 1984 and you saw it on VOD, or if you're in the States, you saw this on HBO Max, yeah, I mean, it's worth it to get this at a much higher quality. But for the more casual fan, maybe you could wait for this to drop in price for a little bit. So yeah, that is going to be my recommendation for Wonder Woman 1984, coming to us from Warner Brothers Home Entertainment.
Go crazy?
Don't mind if I do!
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria!
And it's time for the weird news. We've got 3 stories here today, curated by Birdman himself. And without further ado, here is the first one. This is brought to us by Global News, and it says, Italian man accused of skipping work for 15 years straight. Find a job that will forget you're on the payroll and you'll never work a day in your life. Italian prosecutors say they've busted a man who raked in roughly 538,000 euros, or the equivalent of 647,000 US dollars, which I guess would be 800,000 or 900,000 Canadian, over 15 years without ever showing up to his hospital job, in one of the most egregious cases of absentee abuse they've ever seen. Police have dubbed Salvatore Scumacci, who's 67, the king of absentees for his allegedly rampant abuse of public sector funds in the city of Candazzaro. It says here, it was reported, authorities say the man used threats to ensure that he would not be docked for missing work at the local hospital, and that he later fell off his employer's radar altogether while still collecting paychecks. His job, at least on paper, was as a safety officer at Pugliese Siaccio Hospital, Italy's Unione Sarda newspaper reported. The suspect faces charges of abuse of office, forgery, and aggravated extortion in connection with the scheme. The Guardian reports 6 other managers at the hospital are also under investigation for alleged involvement, officials said. Authorities say the suspect's absentee abuse started in 2005 when a distinguished person allegedly threatened the hospital director and warned her not to file a disciplinary report against him. Police say the director complied and turned a blind eye to his absences, and that the suspect simply never showed up for work again while still being paid. This sounds like the mob. The director eventually retired, and her successor took over with no knowledge that there was a ghost on the payroll. Human Resources also did not notice, police said. It's unclear when the scheme came to light, but the hospital launched disciplinary action against the man last year and also alerted the authorities. He was fired in October and later arrested as part of an investigation dubbed Operation Part-Time. Investigators say that the arrest came after they conducted an extensive witness interview and reviewed attendance logs at the hospital. Crazy. I mean, maybe he should have just quit last year. If he had just put in his papers, or maybe not. Maybe you're in so far that if you putting in your papers would signal things. Maybe feigning it. Nah, I can't feign ignorance. He's screwed. But it might have been an interesting, cushy last decade or so. So our next story comes from Yahoo News. It says here through Engadget, the U.S. Postal Service is monitoring social media for inflammatory postings. The United States Postal Service may not be a likely candidate if you're asked to name the government agencies that you think are monitoring social media posts, but apparently it's been doing just that. According to Yahoo News, the Postal Service's law enforcement arm, the United States Postal Inspection Service, or USPIS, has been running a surveillance program called the Internet Covert Operations Program. Now, the U.S. Postal thing, wasn't there a really lame Hallmark TV series where it was detectives working for the U.S. Postal Service or something stupid like that? If you know that, let me know. Analysts with the team have reportedly been drawing social media websites for inflammatory posts and then distributing the information they collect to other agencies through Homeland Security. Yahoo News got its hands on a document describing the kinds of content they found revolving planned protests for the worldwide rally for freedom and democracy back in March. The bulletin contained posts collected from Facebook, Parler, Telegram, and other social media sites. It noted that Parler users in particular commented about their intent to use the rallies to engage in violence, with some protesters saying that it's their opportunity to do serious damage, because those are stupid people that should have been jailed a long time ago. The ICOP analysts concluded that there was no intelligence available to suggest the legitimacy of these threats. However, the notice said that they will continue monitoring social networks and identifying posts discussing planned attacks and violent actions. That government agencies are keeping an eye on Parler and Facebook groups doesn't come as a surprise, considering the role they played in giving people a platform to plan the Capitol riot attacks back in January. Civil liberties experts expressed their They are surprised that the Postal Service is monitoring the posts online, though, when the Postal Service isn't related to social media. When asked by Yahoo News, they explained that the action is meant to protect the Postal Service, its infrastructure, its employees, and customers. So I have a feeling that it's not because like they think that they're better at doing it than like the NSA or something. I think it's more like they're worried that they're going to use that as a platform to weed out people that might be mailing bombs and stuff to each other. So I get it. It's still kind of funny. Postman. So the last one here is brought to us by 1011now.com. Birdman grabbed this. Calling everyone named Josh. Name fight going down in Lincoln on Saturday. I think this happened, didn't it? I think it was updated, but this says here, Lincoln, Nebraska. What started as a joke during the pandemic is now turning into the gathering of people from across the country in Lincoln this weekend. Anyone named Josh is invited to partake in a Josh fight to see who the rightful owner of the name is. Josh Swain lives in Arizona. During the pandemic, he created a Facebook group for everybody named Josh Swain. He planned to fight low impact like fencing with pool noodles to see who gets the official naming rights of Josh. This Saturday, Josh is from near and far are meeting in Air Park for what they call the Josh fight. The original post is that they would show up with these coordinates if they had chosen a random, which happened to be a random field in Nebraska. Swain thought it would just be a funny joke during the pandemic, boredom, that nobody would remember about it. Then a post resurfaced on social media saying it was happening. I immediately was frightened, and then my friend was like, you have to go. I guess you have to make this a thing. Swain is graduating in May from Arizona. He didn't know if it would take off like this. It's so bizarre. This week, Nebraska Wesleyan student Ryan Wall made a TikTok about the Josh fight. It got more than 1.5 million views. Unfortunately, I'm not named Josh, but I will be covering the event on social media platform TikTok, he said. Money raised was going to go towards legal fees for Josh's to change their names. Instead, there's a fundraiser to set up benefit for Children's Hospital and Medical Center. The organizer has never been to Nebraska and plans to visit the capital and also get to Runza. Now, let me see here. I gotta look it up. I'm pretty sure the name fight, Birdman got this, but I think this has been updated as well. Let me see here. Who won? I know it was a kid. The festivities, this is from the Indian Press, which just to update the article because that one wasn't updated to the newest. It says here, festivities started with grueling and righteous battle of rock, paper, scissors between Josh Swain from Arizona and another Josh Swain from Omaha. Then it says here there was a pool noodle competition and I'm going to type in Josh name fight winner. Okay, here we go. So this one is from USA Today. The winner is a 4-year-old Joshua Vincent Jr. who was honored with a paper crown and hoisted in the air for all of the Joshes to see. The 4-year-old one. That's great. You know what? As long as everybody there was vaccinated, and it appears that they were all wearing masks as well. This was a fun way. Those pick-me-up stories where it's like the ridiculousness of the internet can come together sometimes and make something interesting. I can't see anything wrong with this. Are we going to do an Alex fight? Like, are we going to do... We could. I had 3 Alexes in my one class one year, and that was madness and bedlam. And it was one year where we had 3 people in the class with the same birthday, too. Nobody else is allowed to have February 2nd. That's mine. So that's going to do it for the weird news this week. And we're going to come back with my review of... What do I put in here? This will be my review of MLB The Show, the newest version on PlayStation 5.
Do you have any hobbies?
I collect spores, molds, and fungus.
Hold that thought. It's crapper time.
MLB The Show. We've reviewed the last, 3 years or so since I've been on board here. I think Michael might have done some before that. It's become sort of a staple every year. It's one of the few sports titles that we follow because baseball's always been a little more up our style. It's things that we played in school. I personally am not somebody who ever even learned to skate. I know it's blasphemy for Canadian, so hockey, NHL isn't my thing. And, I always gravitated towards baseball. So when it came time to review baseball titles, there really hasn't been anything else in the game that, was at the same level of MLB The Show for many, many years. So it's always been sort of a high mark. And this year, with the announcement that it was going multi-platform, it was interesting to sort of see how it would play out. And this is mostly a review of the PlayStation 5 version, which was provided to us from Sony Interactive. But, in the interim time, I did also check it out on my Xbox to see, as it was part of their Game Pass. And, long story short, between the two, I found that ever so slightly, it seemed to look a little better and load, in some instances, pretty significantly faster on the PlayStation. So I'll stick with reviewing the PlayStation version that says that seems to be the premier version. And I guess it makes sense. It's a team that has mostly developed for PlayStation before, so there's going to be some hiccups developing for others. So, I'll just get into the PlayStation version now. There have been some improvements subtly to pretty much every part of the game engine and gameplay modes. Things that in previous reviews we've talked about, that it is incremental and nothing groundbreaking. The big thing here that I can point out is the load times. You're like simulating, when it's developing the simulation of how the game's going to play and everything. That's the sort of stuff that would take a bit of time on the previous generation hardware. On the PlayStation 5, it just, bam, loads right in. We're talking seconds to get into pretty much any game or any game mode. The streaming audio into it and having the plays start up. In previous generations, PS3, PS4, you occasionally see a hiccup here or there when it came to transitioning to a movie, or there'd be like frame rate juddering or camera angles that sort of take a while to sort of load and seem sort of take you out of the immersion. Not here. Everything seems to be 100% smooth and things buffer in, thanks to the new tech that they use for their SSD technology and streaming of assets into the game from that extremely fast storage. As far as a visual upgrade, it's ever so slight. This isn't like a huge game-changing upgrade uptick. It appears to be, from what I can see, using a similar engine to what they used in last year's game, only you're playing it, I can only assume, at native 4K the whole time with pretty much 0 frame drops. People that have frame rate counters and do quick analysis might find that there's hiccups and hitches here and there, but to the naked eye, it was not noticeable at all. It seems to be pretty much locked at a 60 FPS for the entire way I played them, as well as having HDR built in. The HDR is subtle and not like oversaturated or overblown, so it does add to it rather than take away. And the added bonus here of playing it at all this resolution and everything. Last year when we did it on the PlayStation 4 Pro, had to turn the game internally down to 1080p because as a lot of later generation titles, it would make the PlayStation scream. The fans would go crazy and you could tell it was getting over hot and heated. No problem like that here. It plays basically silent. There's not even a whirring sound from the PlayStation 5. I imagine if you were looking for something that's like a magical huge leap in graphics, you're probably going to have to wait till the next iteration of the title, which would be one that isn't a multi-platform, multi-generational title. Might be multi-plat, but won't be necessarily available for last generation's systems. That's when you're probably going to see like a big graphical update. I will say this, the detail and field of view is good, so it's not like you have like weird texture pop-ins or anything. It seems to be loading everything all at once in pristine picture with 0 pop-in or anything like that. I did notice in playing it that it's felt a little nicer. Like it's again ever so slight. going back and comparing and downloading last year's game, comparing it to this year's game, it just felt like batting was a little easier. There's different difficulty levels. It does have the variable difficulty that you can select, where if you start doing really well in a game, it'll start to increase the difficulty. You can turn that off. If you just want pure casual play, you can do that. And I felt like there's been some tweaks to the difficulty level in particular, where if you picked like the easiest or most casual setting, you're able to make sure that it's really tuned for how you play, and you're not going to encounter any issues with it being so difficult that you want to put it down. I found that some sports titles, unless you're a really big hardcore sports fan and sports gamer, that you're not necessarily going to be able to take advantage of the whole game without being frustrated. That's not the case here. You're able to play, you're able to get in without having like a super amazing Twitch gameplay or knowledge of the sport. Even you can come at this from basically any angle, and like as far as a novice, a little kid, an adult, and you're going to have a pretty good time. Putting it up to the hardest difficulty, you're going to feel it. I'll tell you that much at least. The game modes, similar to what that's been there before. There's the pseudo RPG mode, which is where you start a career and you move your way through from the little leagues all the way up, and you manage your career, and you have things you can say to your boss and your coach that will change the outcome of what your players' stats are like, and you can bring them into the big leagues and level yourself up. So it's a pseudo RPG-esque mode. There's online play, obviously, different modes for exhibition play, quick games, getting on with multiplayer online. It does have, for anybody wondering, there are microtransactions you can use for getting packs for things. But interestingly enough, nothing seems to be very expensive. It's not like a lot of other games where people have been complaining where they gouge you for getting such little loot boxes and packs of things. It seems very reasonably priced here, and I'm not somebody who's usually a fan of that stuff. In getting the deluxe edition for review, it came with a bunch of packs already, and when you open your packs, if you don't want things that are in there, you can sell them for so many points, and those points can be used to purchase other packs. Or you can put them on the marketplace and have a higher bidder bid for them. So me not being somebody who knows a ton about baseball, I was like, I think this card looks good, and I'll keep that card, and then this card I can put on the market. And I ended up making enough money to buy more packs and stuff. So you can earn the packs and everything through the game, or on the marketplace sell them. If somebody wants to collect all the cards to make a specific team, they can do it, or you don't even have to really participate. It doesn't seem to affect, it's not like paying to win or anything, and it's not like the odds are not like other games where it seems like you get nothing for getting packs. The packs that I got with the deluxe thing as part of the I guess either pre-order bonus or part of that deluxe package included some good cards automatically, but then even ones that I used points that were in the game to get some loot box random packs. Each one seemed to contain something that was at least really good. And if you didn't want something, obviously you could sell it on there. It's got its own marketplace. It's pretty neat how they have that whole currency system working in there. So you don't have to spend any extra real world money if you don't want to, or if it's something that's against your ideals. And if you are somebody that is going to spend some money on there, you're not going to break the bank from what I can see. Audio-wise, it seemed that there was a lot of audio commentary that didn't seem to get as repetitive or boring as sometimes can get in these sports titles. The surround effect is really good as far as spatial audio goes. When I was playing with my Dolby surround system and with the headset, I didn't test to see if there was a good 3D audio effect for headphones, and that's simply because I don't have one of their PlayStation headphones, because they've been sold out pretty much everywhere for like the last 6 months. Maybe I'll get a pair, and then I can start comparing that. But as is, it's pretty solid. It actually installs on the PlayStation 5 at a smaller file size than the last year's edition did in the PlayStation 4. So obviously they're taking advantage of not having to have duplicate assets in every part of your drive sort of thing. So that's always a plus. It is still going to set you back 50 to 60 gigs to download, though, if you're going to go digital. So if you have bandwidth limitations, you might want to think about that. You might want to go with a physical copy. Yeah, there's not much more I can really say other than it's more of the solid gameplay that's out there. It's interesting that it's on multi-platform, but it is still playing best on PlayStation. And it's going to be interesting to see where they move forward with it. If you're a fan of baseball, a fan of MLB The Show, you won't be disappointed. It's still the premier baseball simulator out there.
Those magnificent bastards!
Color me kooky, but something very odd is going on around here.
You're not allowed to talk anymore.
And that's going to do it for the show this week. What do we have coming up? Well, this coming Wednesday, I recorded a new Loose Cannon with Aaron. We talked, the theme of it, I guess, was Fury. We talked about the new Criterion collection release of The Furies, a movie from 1950, Western. And then we also talked about one of my favorite movies that he has never seen, called Blind Fury, starring Rutger Hauer in a blind ninja action comedy from 1989. It's out there, folks. It's a fun one to listen to. So we'll be having that come out on Wednesday. On Friday, what do we have? I believe we'll have a Turner Treasure, review roundup podcast to sort of catch up. It's the end of the month. It's been 4 weeks, at least 3 weeks since I had my vaccination shot. I'll be visiting my grandmother and mother, sort of help watch my grandmother, since she's got some health issues and my mom needs a break. So I'll be visiting there for about a week, maybe 5 days or so, and then I'll be heading home. So I'll probably pre-record a lot of the elements for this coming week's show before I go down. And then coming up, we've got plenty more of the some syndicated stuff. I believe there's more Nerd to the Third podcasts coming out, but I know for sure that we have more Earth versus Soup. To that end, in addition to the 10 that I was going to be editing this week, I've also got 3 more that are hot off the presses, hot off the recording press. That doesn't make any sense. Whatever. We've got 3 more that are going to be coming obviously later this year, but a sneak peek would be Mutiny in Outer Space, The Day of the Triffids, and First Spaceship on Venus. So lots of wacky and some serious 1950s and 60s sci-fi from Aaron and Darlene there. And we've got more with Birdman coming up. He said he's feeling a little better, so he can do some reviews now and then, and we'll see where that goes. But that's going to do it for the show this week. It's going to be a shorter show, as you obviously listen to, and we're going to keep it that way with more variety of stuff coming. I do want to get a prototype maybe out in the next week or 2. We'll see how that works. If not, don't hold me to it. But we are going to be having a bunch more movie content coming, some videos we received in the mail to review from Vinegar Syndrome and from Criterion Collection, I believe, are coming soon as well. And we've got VR headset stuff. I do have the prescription VR lenses that are supposed to be here in the next couple days, and that might be on the week after show. I'm not 100% sure, but we'll see how that goes. And that's going to do it for this week. I'll talk to everybody later.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at ThisWeekInGeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@ThisWeekInGeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.